The scream didn't come through the usual channels. It wasn't a data packet wrapped in clearance protocols or routed through encrypted relays. It bled straight into the stars raw, unfiltered, soaked in fear. Kavros outpost, this is emergency. Code red, they're inside. Please, the voice cracked, young and trembling. A girl's voice. The feed stuttered once. Then static cleared just long enough to show her wide, dirt-streaked face eyes glinting under flickering emergency lights. Behind her, a blast door bent inward like paper, groaning as something pounded against it. She screamed again, turning, as shadows spilled across the room. The feed cut, but not before the screaming got louder. Every screen from Earth to the outer mining colonies lit up at once. No warning, no control override. Broadcasts froze mid-commercial. Training feeds in. Naval academies snapped into still frames of blood-soaked corridors. A late-night comedy show on Mars flickered, replaced by a split-second view of a man's hand, still twitching, severed on the floor. And then the full transmission began. Kavros outpost raw feed. No edits. Time-stamped 8 minutes prior. Shaking. Cameras caught chaos in motion. Miners and tech crews scrambling through red-lit corridors. Walls shuddered. Doors crumpled. Some things poured through airlocks that should have been fail-sealed. They weren't alien in the traditional sense. There were no sleek designs, no bioluminescent grace. These things were hunched, twitching silhouettes human-sized, but wrong in all the ways that mattered. Too many joints. Faces hidden behind carved bone plates and rusted mesh. They moved like insects. They tore like animals. A scientist slipped in a pool of blood, screamed, was dragged off camera by something with a hooked arm and too many fingers. Another man stumbled to a wall console and hit the alarm, but no sound came, just a hiss. Low, pulsing hiss that grew louder with every heartbeat. Across Earth, across Luna, Europa, Kepler colonies, and the scorched research stations on Eridanus, people froze. It wasn't just a warning, that it was a cry for help. And it had been broadcast. By force. Inside the Galactic Council's obsidian chamber, silence reigned. Holographic footage replayed the transmission for the third time. 17 delegates from 17 different species sat in cold detachment. A threned visor shimmered in gaseous form, pulsing green with unease. A Saurian general's scales flared. In agitation, gills twitching with restrained instinct, High Consul A River of the Zel Tirai clicked his mandibles, gaze unmoving. Under Protocol Directive 72B, this falls beyond immediate jurisdiction. Kavros is Earth-funded. The humans must petition for intervention. But Earth's representative, Counselor Arjun Nair, didn't even blink. His voice was calm, flat. No petition is required. The Council paused. Meaning? The Volan delegate growled. Nair leaned forward just slightly. It means your protocols are irrelevant. We've already responded. His image blinked out before they could reply. Beneath. The Andes, hidden beneath 3 kilometers of glacier-packed crust, a vault groaned. Ice cracked, steel warmed. Deep within an old military installation, sealed since the last interstellar incident, systems long buried beneath denial flickered online. A single word, long forbiddance, echoed through every secure channel. Re-Elias not authorize. Not initiate. Not deploy. Just release. Across space, buried agents received the signal. In prison cells, in cryopods, in forgotten labs, in urban ruins. Old soldiers, erased files, monsters by some accounts, all stirred. Earth hadn't sent diplomats. It had. Sent the forgotten. The most dangerous humans ever made. Asterisk. The wind howled across the white spine of the Andes, but no one heard it. Not beneath the ice. Not where the sun hadn't touched in decades. Metal groaned as the last magnetic seal hissed open. Steam vented in sharp jets, flooding the corridor in artificial fog. A door, 3 meters thick and layered in uranium-infused plating, slid aside with mechanical reluctance. Inside, the lights flickered on for the first time in 30 years. Rows of reinforced cells, cryopods, and neural isolation tanks hummed to life. Commander Juno Rain didn't open her eyes right away. She felt the power hum before she heard the vault doors unseal. Her breath crystallized in the freezing chamber air, chest barely rising beneath the gel-thin layer stretched over her armors. Undersuit? Then, a sharp hiss automated needles retracting from her spine. Juno's eyes snapped open. The pod seal cracked, releasing her into the world with a low metallic cough. She stumbled out barefoot onto steel grating, muscles stiff. From preservation, joints aching with memory. The lights above flared red, then white. "Commander Juno Rain," came a voice. Flat, female, artificial. "You have been reinstated under Code Black 9. Confirm identity." Juno coughed once. Spat blood onto the floor. "Confirm identity," the voice repeated. She looked up, hair soaked, jaw clenched. "Still me," she rasped. In the next chamber, others were already waking. Some coughed. Others screamed. One man laughed. Talon Gray was the second to emerge tall, broad-shouldered, with a lopsided grin that hadn't changed even after 7 years in stasis. His file had been marked with 3 words: civilian casualties acceptable. He flexed his fingers, blinked at the sterile room, and exhaled slowly. "Well," he said, rolling his neck, "either this is hell, or Earth finally ran out of heroes." Next to him, Lexi Howell-Thorne tore her way out of the cryo-seal before the clamps could disengage. Her eyes burned under a matte black shock collar, and her forearms were webbed with surgical scars, each one a failed attempt to control her. She didn't say a word, just looked at the others like prey, and walked barefoot across the floor. Silas Stitch, Kuros, emerged from a stasis tank suspended by medical arms. His cryopod was laced with restraint lines, but he hadn't fought them. His hands, long and delicate, moved with surgical grace as he reassembled his cracked glasses from a nearby tray. His voice was smooth, clinical. Vitals seem acceptable. Residual trauma will emerge within hours. Recommend sedatives for the fee. Rest of you, I'll abstain. Further down, Kane Draven's pod blinked red as it opened. His eyes fluttered with machine delay, one iris mechanical, the other fully black. The neural uplink jack behind his ear sparked faintly as the system sensed external data. His brain was already absorbing updated maps, satellite feeds, and filtered audio from the Kavros transmission. Kane didn't speak. He just nodded once. 2 more emerged. Vera Hollow, the sniper who once eliminated 3 council envoys during peace talks, stretched silently. Her fingers moved as if still on the trigger. Beside her, Unit Echo 9 activated, with a low power surge. 7 feet tall, pale skin laced with neural metal. The word redacted burned into the back of his neck. The room's main screen flickered to life. A man in a dark uniform appeared. His face was older, scarred, one eye, hidden beneath a dermal patch. General Cashin Roke, thought dead, thought buried with the program that had made these operatives in the first place. His voice was hoarse. "You're not being asked. You're not being begged. You're being released." Juno stepped forward, eyes locked on his image. Roke continued. "Kavros outpost sent a signal. No one else will answer it. No one else is equipped to. That colony holds 7,000 civilians, or what's left of them." Stitch folded his arms. "So send in the rescue fleet." "There isn't one," Roke said. "Council won't act. They're calling it Earth's jurisdiction. By the time diplomacy catches up, nothing will be left. We're not sending heroes. We're sending a message. Talon scoffed. Nice. Send in the bastards you buried, and pretend we're the cavalry. Roke didn't flinch. You were never the cavalry. You're the line we swore never to cross again. And now we need you to do it one last time. The screen blinked out. Silence fell over the room, and the hum of armories unlocking. One by one, they stepped toward the lockers as the steel walls retracted. Black gear, no insignias, no flags, just reinforced suits, custom weapons, and tools made for men and women the world wanted to forget. Juno opened her locker. Inside, her old armor, battle-worn and still stained beneath the chest plate. A folded photo. A little girl, smiling. Gone. Now, buried with the war no one remembered. She sealed the armor and slid the helmet on. Her voice came through the internal coms. Mount up. If Earth thinks we're its monsters, let's remind them why they buried us. Behind her, the others geared up in silence. Outside the vault, a black ship waited in orbit. No name. Number. Registry. Just a single call sign burned into its internal systems. Black SI-GMA active. The most dangerous humans alive had just been set loose. And they were headed straight for hell. The dropship didn't hum like military transports were supposed to. It growled low, deep, mechanical, like it had a grudge. The hull was matte black, seamless, void of lights, and quiet in the kind of way predators are before they strike. Inside, it smelled of cold steel, burnt lubricant, and old memories. Juno Rain sat strapped into the lead harness. Her helmet rested by her feet. She stared ahead, eyes unfocused, jaw set, knuckles white around the rifle she hadn't touched in years. Every bump of turbulence echoed in her bones like a drumbeat she'd once forgotten how to march to. Talon. Gray was chewing on a protein ration like it owed him money. His armor was already scratched, and they hadn't even landed yet. He sat with one leg casually propped, shotgun across his lap. You know, he said, voice half muffled, most people get pulled out of deep freeze and get therapy. We get a war zone. Therapy's expensive, Hollow muttered across from him, loading rounds into her sniper rig with elegant, precise movements. Bullets are cheaper. Lexi Thorne, Howell, to the reports, paced slowly at the rear of the cabin, one hand dragging along the interior wall. Her nails scraped the metal, as if testing it for weakness. She hadn't said a word. Since boarding, her eyes were wide and distant. She smiled now and then, but it didn't reach anywhere near her sole dot at the far corner. Kane Draven sat rigid, pupils flickering with digital overlays only he could see. Feeds ran behind his eyes, Cavro's outpost topography, known infrastructure schematics, population logs, pre-screened cargo manifests. A neural spike jutted from the base of his neck, pulsing faintly. The data wasn't good. Environmental scans show massive substructural heat anomalies, Kane said, voice even. No official reactor activity. Something else is burning down there. Stitch responded without looking up from his medkit, voice casual, almost bored. Let's hope it's not a bonfire made of colonists. Echo to 9 stood at the center of the troop bay, unmoving, not a breath, not a twitch, just presence like a statue built from war. The only sign of life was the occasional shift of his eyes, scanning the others, recording their micro-expressions. Not for threat, for pattern. Echo didn't remember what it meant to trust, but he knew how to recognize when a unit was about to break. ETA 90 seconds. The pilot's voice crackled. Over internal comms. No heat signatures. No IFF pings. Cavros is dark. From her seat, Juno adjusted her armor seals. Weapons hot on drop. If we're lucky, we're walking into a ghost town. And if we're not? Talon asked, rising to his feet, checking. His mag. Juno slid her helmet on. Then we remind them what Earth does when it's angry. A moment passed. The cabin lights dimmed to red. Landing clamps locked in place with a jolt, and the descent began. Outside, Kavro's outpost loomed into view. It was worse than expected. The main colony structure had partially collapsed inward, like something had crushed it from above, but left no impact crater. Storage bays were wide open, hangars gutted. Communication towers had melted, not from heat, but from within, their spires twisted like they tried to screen Dot as the ship touched down. Dust curled around it like ash from a long-dead fire. A weak breeze moved breeze-shredded flags, torn uniforms, a child's doll with one eye missing. The hatch hissed open. Silence. No welcome. No bodies in view. Just the smell. Burnt oil, blood, and something sweet beneath it. Wrong. Rotten. Juno was the first out, rifle up. Her boots hit the cracked platform with a thud that echoed far too loud in the stillness. The others followed, weapons drawn, eyes sharp. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. This wasn't a mission. This was a graveyard, and the dead weren't finished with them yet. Asterisk, the station was too quiet, not abandoned, hushed, like a thing holding its breath. Boots thudded against scorched alloy as the team advanced, fanned out in tight formation. Juno led, rifle raised, visor sweeping in sync with her HUD. Every surface they passed bore signs of panic blood smeared across bulkheads, gouges in the floor where fingernails had scraped for purchase. An overturned tramcar lay fused to the wall near the eastern entry tunnel, its inside scorched black, emergency lights flickering like dying fireflies. Lexi Thorne tilted her head slowly, one ear twitching beneath her shock collar. Her pupils narrowed to pinpricks. "Smell that?" she rasped. "No," Stitch replied. "But if you smell something, I'm loading tranquilizers." "It's not blood," Lexi said, lips curling in disgust. "It's wrong, like meat that's still moving." Juno raised her fist. Halt. They stopped. Up ahead, just beyond the first corridor junction, something lay across the floor. Not a body. Not exactly. Kane approached first, kneeling beside. It's part of a man, he said, upper torso. No lower half. Looks melted, like he tried to crawl out of his own armor before he died. Hollow scanned the walls with her scope. That's not heat damage. Armor's cracked outward. Something inside him wanted out. Talon Gray sighed, slinging his shotgun and reaching for a short-range flare. "No tracks," he muttered. "No drag marks. This guy didn't die here. He was left here." Echo 9 moved past them, steps perfectly even. He knelt beside the body, one hand gently scanning the ruined tissue with embedded sensors. Residual B, IOE, ICT, ICIT, Y. Consistent with neural override, he said in his low, synthetic tone. He wasn't killed. He was rewired. Juno straightened, jaw tightening. They moved deeper. Kavro's main concourse was a mess of half-evacuated stalls, scattered rations, broken screens. A promotional holla flickered overhead, an ad for family relocation plans, frozen mid-frame with a smiling couple and the slogan, "Kavro's, the frontier of tomorrow." It looped again and again as they passed bodies draped in cloth and mining gear. One of the corpses was sitting upright, face toward the wall, as if waiting in line. His eyes had been removed. Lexi crouched beside him, studying the blood trails leading from his empty sockets. "They took his eyes," she whispered, "but not his data tag. That's deliberate." "Why?" Hollow asked. Lexi looked up to send the message. A low clatter echoed from the ventilation shaft above them. Not loud, but just enough to make everyone freeze. Then again. Metal on metal. Scraping. Crawling. Echo? Juno asked. He turned toward the ceiling. Movement. 30 meters up. Tracking pattern inconsistent. Non-human gait. Kane interfaced. With a wall panel, fingers twitching across corroded keys. Station's mainframe is down. No AI presence. Power rerouted somewhere deeper. Then he paused. His expression shifted, eyes scanning data that wasn't coming from the panel. "What is it?" Juno asked. Kane looked up, voice flat. "We're not alone, and the feed it's being mirrored. Something's watching us through our own suits." Before anyone could respond, the lights cut out. Total black. Then a flicker emergency red strips snapped on, casting the corridor in pulsing bloodlight, and the screaming started again. It didn't come from ahead or behind. It came from everywhere. Not a single voice, but many, layered and overlapping. As if recorded, fragmented, looping. "I don't want to change, please I." Don't want to." The floor vibrated. Something hit the far bulkhead. Hard. Then again. Talon raised his weapon. "We've got movement 2 o'clock." From the far corner of the corridor, something stumbled into view. A man, or what had once been one. He limped forward, skin, a patchwork of lesions and scabbed over implants. His eyes glowed faintly, not with light, but with hunger. Wires curled from his spine, plugging into a device fused to his chest, a mass of flesh and circuitry, pulsing like a second heart. He saw them, and smiled. That was the worst part. He didn't scream. He grinned, then he charged. Echo met him mid-stride, intercepting with a brutal shoulder check that shattered bone. The man flew back into the wall with a crunch. Didn't cry out, just laughed. Then another came, then 4 more. Suddenly, the corridor filled with movement figures emerging from air ducts, crawling out of maintenance shafts. Human. Almost. All of them altered. Augmented with junk. Grafted metal and bone, reeking of oil and decay. The team opened fire. Muzzle flashes lit the dark. Juno fired in tight bursts, dropping 2 before they reached cover. Stitch launched a short-range shock dart into a leaping. Figure it convulsed in mid-air before slamming to the floor. Lexi tore through one with her blades, screaming as blood sprayed across her face. "Suppress left flank," Juno barked. "Echo, with me." They pushed forward through the madness. For every abomination they dropped, 2 more rose behind it. Kane shouted over comms. "Something's jamming our exit route. Doors are rerouting. It's forcing us inward." "Toward what?" Hollow shouted, snapping off a round that punched through a deformed head. "Toward the core," Kane answered. "It wants us to see." And as they fought through the carnage, Juno knew whatever was behind this wasn't just hostile. It was intentional. Something inside Cavro's outpost wanted to be found. Smoke drifted like fog through the ruins of Cavro's upper concourse, curling around collapsed walkways and shattered support beams. The walls flickered with low red pulses, emergency lights bleeding color across broken glass and body parts. That no longer looked strictly human. The screaming had stopped. The corridor was quiet now, too quiet. Juno crouched behind a fractured panel, chest heaving beneath scorched armor. Her visor was cracked. Blood, some hers, most not dripped. From the edge of her chin, the air tasted like rust and fire. She glanced down at her rifle's display. Low ammo. Again. "They're not just infected," she muttered over squad comms. They single quotes constructed. Echo 9 stood nearby, uninjured, unmoved. He was scanning. The nearest corpse, which twitched now and then from leftover synaptic surges. Composite design, he confirmed. Bio and machine fused through direct trauma layering. Adaptive regrowth. These were colonists repurposed. Kane's voice crackled over comes from the adjacent data tower, breath shallow. I found a link node, partially operational. These things, they aren't just a response to infection. They're makeshift? Hollow asked, wiping blood from her cheek with a torn strip of gauze. Kane hesitated. No. Designed, engineered, with precision. Engineered by who? Talon grunted. He was bandaging his own arm with one hand, shotgun slung casually over his shoulder, like this was just another day on the job. Because I don't see any aliens here wearing lab coats. Not aliens, Kane said. Not anymore. Juno's stomach turned. She already knew the answer. It's our tech, isn't it? Silence. Then Kane whispered, yeah, some of it still has Earth serial numbers. Juno stood, swaying slightly. Her helmet was gone, her eyes cold. She looked toward the shattered doors, leading deeper into the base, where the lights flickered and the blood trails thickened. We've been here before, she said quietly. Lexi Thorne tilted her head from where she crouched beside a vent shaft. Her voice was low and trembling with excitement. This isn't their first test run, Commander. You've seen this? Stitch asked, raising an eyebrow. Lexi licked her lips, grinning without humor. Only in my nightmares. In the silence that followed, a child's voice echoed faintly from a corridor ahead. Too clear, too composed. We're still here. Watching, waiting. You left us. Talon froze. No way that's live. Kane confirmed what they all feared. It's a recording, looped, modified. He paused. It was made from actual cum chatter, fragmented logs. Voices of the original crew. Maeve silent until now muttered. They're using the dead like language. Juno's jaw clenched. It's bait. Then the floor shook, not a quake of rhythm. A deep, metallic pounding from somewhere beneath their feet. Slow, steady. 4 beats. A pause. Then again. The sound of something ancient learning to walk. Echo 9 turned toward. The floor, sensors flaring. There's movement, beneath sublevel 600s. They're marching, Mitsuo said. His voice was back online now from the flanking route. Calm, measured, not chaos, not attack patterns. Ritual. Juno moved to the edge of the G. Shattered platform and looked down. Far below, beyond the flickering lights, something massive stirred. Not a shape, exactly just the absence of one. A moving shadow, the color of void, crawling along the spine of the station. Then came the whisper again, from every wall, every speaker. You were supposed to save us. Stitch checked his tablet. I just decrypted a corrupted folder. From the colony's medical logs. Pre-collapse. Go, Juno ordered. He read aloud. Subject 41 through 77 showed behavioral shift. Began humming. Drawing spirals. Waiting to go down. Refused food. Preferred proximity to reactor core. Said it called to them. Log ends with containment failed. It's not the disease. That spreads. It's the belief. Talon took a step back. They didn't get infected. They converted. They offered themselves, Hollow said. Kane cut in. I found the entry point. Sublevel 9, reactor sector. It's alive down there. Alive how? Juno asked. A beat. And Kane's voice came back quiet. Like it's breathing. Lexi looked up, hair matted to her face. Do we go down? Juno stared ahead, where the shadows pulsed and the air trembled. We go down, she said, but not to save anyone. She chambered a fresh mag. We go down to end this. And then they moved. No more chatter. No more doubt. Just 8 black figures dropping into the blood-stained dark, following the echoes of Earth's oldest sin. What it chooses to forget. The elevator had no lights. No interface, no music. Just silence, metal, and descent. The team stood shoulder to shoulder inside the drop shaft as it shuddered downward past level 6. Then level 7, deeper into the belly of what had once been a peaceful mining outpost. Talon cracked his knuckles. Hollow shifted her stance, her finger never leaving the trigger guard. Lexi rocked slightly on her heels, smiling at something only she could hear. Juno stood dead center, staring at the floor as if trying to see through it. There was blood on her boots, still warm. The elevator slowed, then stopped. No chime, no voice prompt. Just the hiss of decompression and a grinding metallic groan as the blast doors parted. Sublevel 9, reactor sector. The hallway beyond was narrow, soaked in condensation, and wrapped in fleshy cables that pulsed like veins. Soft light seeped through the walls reddish-orange, like something behind them was breathing in rhythm. Mold crept along the ceiling. Bones hung from rusted pipes wired together into crude wind chimes that clinked softly in the stale air. Kane stepped forward first, scanning. These power signatures, they're wrong. The grid isn't failing. It's been restructured. The whole station's electrical system is following a new pattern. What pattern? Hollow asked. Kane didn't answer immediately. He stared at his HUD like it had betrayed him. It's not code. It's music. Lexi exhaled. That's what I've been hearing. Juno moved to the front, eyes narrowing. We keep moving. No splits, no scouts, no risks. They advanced in tight formation. Each corridor was worse than the last. The walls warped inward like flesh, pulled too tight over bone. Doors had been pried open and bent backward, as if something had crawled out from them. Every panel flickered with distorted images, faces half-formed, mouths open mid-scream, looping again and again. Then they reached the first chamber, a wide, dome-shaped room, the hydro-distribution nexus. What remained of the original water? Tanks lined the walls, but now they were full of people, suspended in fluid, twitching, their eyes wide open, mouths gasping without breath. Each body was wired into the station, with thick, black tendrils running from their spines into the ceiling. Lexi stepped close to the glass of one tank. The man inside blinked. He was still alive. Before she could react, he slammed his head into the glass again and again. Each hit cracked the surface. Juno pulled her back. Not here for mercy, she said. From the far side of the room, Mitsuo's voice whispered over comms. They've repurposed life as infrastructure. It's more than power. What then? Talon asked. Memory, Mitsuo said. They're storing thoughts. Souls, maybe. I don't know. But this place isn't running on fusion. It's running on sacrifice. A low tone echoed through the walls. 4 beats. A pause. And again, a door ahead opened on its own. They passed through it. Beyond lay the sanctum, a massive, cathedral-like space stretching 2 levels high. Reactor conduits spiraled upward like ribs. The center was a pit, filled with pulsing biomass, metal struts, and dozens, maybe hundreds of kneeling figures. Each one faced the core. Each one was blindfolded, mouth sewn open, hands in prayer. And above them, mounted high against the central spire, was the missing colony director. Split open, chest hollowed, his organs wired into a speaker system, still broadcasting static. A crude sign hung from his neck, written in blood. They promised salvation. Hollow turned away, bile rising. Kane moved to the edge of the platform and stared down. There, worshipping. Worshipping what? Talon asked. As if on cue, a low rumble filled the chamber. The biomass in the pit shifted. From beneath, something moved. Juno raised her rifle. Contact, the surface broke. A face rose from the pit. No, not one many. Dozens, twisted together. Human, alien, machine. All screaming, mouths open in silent agony. The body attached was massive part flesh, part steel, supported by limbs that dragged behind it like molten bone. One arm was a fusion of claws and surgical instruments. The other held a child's toy melted into the flesh. It looked at them and smiled. Kane gasped. "It's not a creature." Stitch spoke the words like a diagnosis. "It's a god they made from the pieces of those they broke." The lights pulsed once. Then the kneeling worshippers rose, simultaneously, perfectly timed. One voice, many mouths echoed from them all. We waited for help. Instead, Earth sent the monsters. Lexi stepped forward, blades drawn, eyes burning. Damn right we did. And then the chamber exploded into motion. Asterisk. The first wave hit like a flood. Kneeling figures surged from the pit's edge with horrifying speed, eyes sewn shut, mouths still forced open, releasing that unearthly, layered chant. Their bodies were mutilated, but strong stitched with bone. Braces, wired with synthetic sinew, flesh scarred in spirals. Each moved like a puppet yanked by a cruel god, mindless and precise. Juno fired first 2 clean bursts to center mass. The nearest worshipper fell without a sound, only to rise again. Blood streamed down its chest, but it didn't falter. It laughed, a dry, gurgling hiss, and lunged again. Switched to inhibitors. She shouted. They're pain dead. The team adapted in seconds. Hollow dropped to one knee, firing suppressive rounds that detonated on impact. One worshipper's arm was ripped clean off. It still kept coming. Talon rolled into cover and unleashed a koji. Scatter blast at close range, turning a torso to paste. Another filled its place instantly. Lexi danced through the horde like a blade on a wire spinning, slicing, covered in blood that wasn't hers. Her shock collar flared with every strike, overloading but barely holding her back from a full chemical surge. She smiled as she gutted. The next one. I like this place, she giggled. Good, Stitch muttered. It likes you too. The floor beneath them trembled. The pit shifted, and from the biomass below, something else began to rise. The god body was only the beginning. This was the spine. A second form unfolded from beneath the floor, larger, not yet finished. Skin slick, metal plates fused to ribs, neural cords glowing like veins of molten glass. Dozens of heads, some human, some unidentifiable, flickered in and out of the surface like drowning souls. Mitsuo's voice came through the combs, still eerily calm. The reactor isn't failing. It's transitioning. Into what? Kane asked, rerouting power in a desperate attempt to stall the core's growth. Into a brain. What? It's building a neural lattice, Mitsuo said. Out of us. Hala's pulse spiked. You mean we're fuel? No, Mitsuo whispered. We're intended. Juno dropped another worshipper, grabbed Kane by the shoulder. How do we stop it? He shook his head. There's no protocol for this. We're beyond black site parameters. We're off the map. Then write a new one, she growled. Above them, the fused director's body twitched. The speakers crackled. A new voice, feminine, young, familiar, whispered across the chamber. The girl from the original SOS. You were too late. So we built our own salvation. Do you want to see? Then the walls peeled open. Steel and flesh tore away, revealing chambers behind the cathedral, dozens of them. Incubation vaults, each glowing red with gestation fluid. Inside every one, a form twitched, human silhouettes. Some still whole, some malformed, merged. Some looked like the team. Talon froze. That's my face, he breathed. One tank. Near perfect replica. Younger, twisted, eyes open. They cop at us, Stitch said. Memories, DNA, neural mapping. They built this from our records. Lexi stopped smiling. They made gods out of our sins. And the reactor roared. Not a sound, a command. The worshippers moved as one, throwing themselves into the biomass, feeding it willingly, dissolving with screams of joy. The central god construct swelled, bones crunching as it grew a new spine. Mitsuo called it. We're out of time. Kane's voice sharpened. I can collapse the chamber if I reach the junction vault, but I need 90 seconds. You get 60, Juno said. Copy. Mitsuo, get him there. Lexi, flank right. Talon, with me. The team moved, carving a path through the madness. Juno fired point-blank into a charging worshipper's neck, ducked beneath another's blade, and rammed her boot into its sternum. Bones cracked. She didn't stop. Lexi was a blur carving through 3 at once, shrieking in ecstasy. Stitch reached hollow, dragged her out from beneath falling debris. Stay with me. Kane and Mitsuo reached the vault's edge. A terminal hung from twisted cabling, sparking violently. Kane slammed his neural jack into the port, eyes fluttering. Beginning overload, he whispered. Core detachment protocol initiated. The reactor screamed again deeper now. Angrier. The unfinished colossus lunged. It moved like a freight train wrapped in meat. Juno saw it coming and ran toward it. Go, she shouted. Bring this whole place down. She fired into its face, if it had a face, and it hesitated. Just long enough. Enough for Kane to whisper, override accepted, and press the trigger. The chamber began to collapse. Walls buckled. The floor cracked. Fire burst through pressure lines. Kane screamed as his neural tether fried, sparks shooting from his. Implant. Mitsuo dragged him back. Lexi grabbed Hollow. Talon scooped Stitch. Echo 9 moved last, pulling Juno out just as the Colossus reached for her. They didn't escape. They survived. The reactor core ruptured in a column of molten red, swallowing everything behind them. And still something moved in the flames. Something still alive. Something not done. But the gods of Kavros had just met something worse. Earth's monsters. And Earth's monsters knew how to finish what others started. ChatGPT said. Flames crawled up the walls like living things. Alarms screamed, but they weren't station-made anymore. They howled like dying animals, warping into wordless voices. That begged, accused, laughed. The structure of Kavros trembled with every groan of the collapsing sublevels. The air was thick with smoke, ash, and the stench of vaporized flesh. The squad ran through it all, sprinting down the fractured corridor, with only seconds of oxygen left in the breathable zones. The power grid failed behind them in bursts, lights dying in rhythmic pulses. Every few meters, another bulkhead gave way, caving under the weight of the reactor's final rage. Juno didn't look back. Kane was slumped over Mitsuo's shoulder, blood leaking from his neural jack, jaw slack from the overload. He wasn't unconscious, but his mind was somewhere else, locked in silent looping screams. Hold him steady. Mitsuo shouted, eyes scanning for their route up. He's still alive. Barely, Stitch growled. His brain took a full discharge. They hit the stairwell half destroyed, debris blocking the upper steps. Juno turned without hesitation, fired 3 rounds into a support beam, and sent the slab crashing down into place as an angled ramp. Move, she barked. Lexi bounded up first, her feet barely touching metal, dragging Hollow behind her. Talon followed, limping, dragging a satchel of Stitch's medkits with one hand, his shotgun with the other. Behind them, the fire roared and the reactor screamed again, a sound not meant for ears. It vibrated bone. It struck the teen's implants like a coded pulse. A command. Stitch gasped. His legs froze mid-stride. It's in my head. Override it. Juno snapped, grabbing his collar and yanking him forward. No, listen. It's not trying to kill us. It's calling something. The stairwell shook violently. From behind, the biomass that had once been confined to the sanctum began spilling up the walls like rising black tide. Flesh metal cables slithered across surfaces, pulsing with heat. Inside the mass eyes, mouths, fragments of limbs all twitching, watching. Where's it going? Hollow asked breathlessly. Echo 9 turned, scanning. His mechanical voice came through flat and final. It's not going. It's following. Lexi's laugh came from ahead, cracked and wild. It's still hungry. They burst through a final service hatch and into. The upper cargo wing now collapsed in half and flooded with flickering emergency lights. Gravity in this section had partially failed. Debris floated in the air syringes, datapads, severed fingers. Their evac ship was on the other side, past the docking bay. Past them, worshippers, dozens, waiting in a wide semicircle, some standing, others kneeling, all silent now, all staring with sewn-shut eyes, their mouths open, not screaming, not praying, listening. In their center stood a new figure taller than the rest, wrapped in a cloak of surgical mesh, armor plating bolted directly into the spine, its hands folded neatly. A woman. Her face was Juno's. Perfectly. Too perfectly. Talon's voice cracked. What the actual? That's not me. Juno said immediately, stepping forward. That's a clone. A projection. No, Mitsuo whispered. It's the station's last effort to stop you. The god form tried to become you. The clone of Juno tilted her head. Her voice was soft, gentle. You abandoned us. You locked us away. So we made something better. We made you. Behind her, the worshippers bowed low. She raised her arms. Come home. Lexi's knives were in her hands before the first worshipper moved. Kill the memory, she growled, and leapt. Chaos exploded again. The squad moved with brutal precision. Talon launched a flashbang into the center, tearing through 3 cultists with scatterfire. Mitsuo held the flank, targeting joints and pressure points with cold surgical accuracy. Stitch covered Kane's body, dragging him into a shielded alcove. If I die protecting him, I'm haunting all of you. Lexi went straight for the clone. They fought like mirrors, same movements, same stances. But Lexi was real. She bled, she burned, and she laughed when she got cut. The clone just copied. Until Lexi changed her rhythm, dropped her stance, switched hands, and drove the blade straight through its eye. The false Juno screamed, not in pain, but in a digital collapse, her body flickering, spasming. Her face split down the middle as the program failed. The rest of the worshippers froze and burst into flame. Self-detonation. The station was eating itself. They're cleansing the memory, Mitsuo said, eyes wide. We weren't supposed to win. Juno activated her com. Pilot opened the bay. Doors were coming in hot. A low voice came through. Copy. Doors unlocked. They sprinted for the evac ship, Eco 9 hurling aside, uttering wreckage like toys. Lexi threw Hollow inside, followed by Talon and Stitch. Juno turned back once, just once, and looked at the inferno rising behind them. Kane stirred on the floor of the ship, barely conscious, whispering, I saw what it wanted. It wanted to be human again. Juno strapped herself in and sealed the hatch. No, she said coldly. It wanted to be us without the cost. The engine screamed. The ship tore free from the dying outpost dot below. Cavro's outpost imploded in a blaze of light flesh, fire, and memory burning together. One final cry echoed through the black. We were what you made us. Juno didn't flinch. Exactly, she whispered. And we're done running from it. Asterisk, the stars stretched cold and still around them. From orbit, Cavros was nothing but a red glowing scar against the surface of the Nthali moon. The outpost was gone burned from within. Not clean. Not precise. Not the surgical erase the evidence kind of destruction Earth was known for. This was messy, personal, biblical. Inside the evac ship, the lights buzzed low, flickering occasionally. As the systems rebalanced, the interior smelled like burnt circuits, scorched armor, and blood. Juno sat in the rear of the cabin, helmet on the floor between her boots, eyes locked forward. She hadn't spoken since takeoff. The others hadn't asked her to. Lexi sat cross-legged on the floor, humming faintly to herself as she cleaned her blades with a cloth already soaked in dried gore. She still had a smear of someone else's blood on her cheek, and didn't seem, in any rush to wipe it off. Talon leaned back against the cabin wall, shotgun resting across his lap. One hand clutched his ribs cracked, maybe broken. He hadn't bothered with the med foam. He liked the pain, said it reminded him he was still. Alive.mitsuo stood by the forward panel, quietly overriding the ship's black box recorder. Not erasing, rewriting, changing the narrative from a council disobeying, blacklisted war crime squad to a classified emergency response team on a humanitarian mission. Stitch sat beside Kane, monitoring the neural damage. Kane's body trembled. In short, slow pulses, like his mind was still trying to sync with a machine that no longer existed. He's seeing things, Stitch said quietly. Whatever the core was, whatever it showed him, it's still in there. Echoes. Echo to 9 stood at the cabin door, unmoving. His eyes were dark, system diagnostics looping silently through his internal. HUD. He hadn't said a word since boarding. Not since he'd pulled Juno out of the inferno by the collar, covered in blood that wasn't hers. The comms crackled. A priority channel opened encrypted, buried behind 10 layers of outdated clearance. Codes. It hadn't been used in 15 years. Command channel. Earth Defense High Clearance, Phoenix Black. Juno moved first. She crossed the cabin and slammed her palm onto the console, opening the line. The screen flickered. A man appeared. Mid-60s, white uniform. No name tag. His face was pale, lit by hollow data glow, and framed by silent operators in the background who didn't make eye contact. He didn't ask how many made it. He didn't ask for a report. He just said, "Did you stop it?" Juno stared at him. Voice low. "We killed it. Was it contained?" Juno tilted her head slightly. Define contained. The man didn't flinch. "Are there any remnants?" Kane stirred behind her. "They were trying to become us," he muttered, eyes unfocused. "They still are." The man on the screen narrowed his eyes. "We have intel suggesting fragments of the construct seeded into the Cavros comnet before collapse. It may have propagated through dark line archives. We're sweeping for signals." Juno's jaw tightened. "You told us it was isolated." "We hoped it was," he replied. "Bullshit," Lexi snapped from the floor. "You used us." He didn't deny it. "We sent the only ones capable. And if we hadn't survived?" Mitsuo asked. "Then you would have done your job," the man said. "The sacrifice would have been noted, quietly." There was silence in the ship. Then Juno stepped forward. "You'll erase this," she said flatly. "Yes. You'll bury it." "Yes. You'll say the monsters died on Calvros." The man nodded. "And Earth will sleep easier because of it." Juno exhaled. "Good." Then she leaned closer to the monitor. "But listen carefully. If that signal spreads, if this thing reemerges, don't send us next time." The man raised an eyebrow. "No?" Juno's voice dropped, cold and certain. Because we won't come back for you. We'll come for you. The line went dead. Talon laughed. Just once, low and bitter. Think he got the message? They always get the message. Hollow muttered. The ship drifted through dark for a moment longer. Then a faint ping echoed through the cabin. Kane jerked upright. Incoming file. Encrypted. From the Kavros relay array. The last fragment. They all froze. Mits UO moved forward, scanning. It's small. Tightly compressed. Stitch looked at Juno. Do we open it? Juno stared at the screen. No. She stepped forward, ejected the drive, crushed it under her boot. Echo-9 finally spoke. Then it's over. But in the farthest dark of deep space, on a derelict, cargo rig drifting without power, a backup signal flickered to life. No sound. No broadcast. Just text. We remember. And beneath it, a single image. Juno Rain's face. Smiling. Asterisk. The rain fell in soft, heavy sheets over the Appalachia recovery zone, far from the stars, far from the memory of Kavros. Down below, in a repurposed command shelter buried beneath what looked like an abandoned radio observatory, Juno Rain stood in front of a glass wall. Her reflection stared back, tired, hard-eyed, streaked with the quiet cracks left behind by fire and guilt. She hadn't slept since re-entry. Not properly. Not since she saw her own face staring back from that altar on Kavros, offering salvation. In her name, behind her, monitors displayed silent footage from colony sectors across the galactic frontier. Blank, peaceful, deceptively calm. No signals. No anomalies. No screams. But Juno knew better. The door behind her hissed open. Lexi Thorne stepped in, still armored, blades tucked neatly at her sides, though her expression was, for once, unreadable. She hadn't spoken much since the return. The laugh had faded. Even the twitch had settled. It was like the part of her that lived for bloodshed had been satisfied. Or maybe it had seen too much. Reports say the Council's officially denying Kavros ever existed, Lexi said, walking up beside her. They buried the outpost under a mineral collapse. Rewritten logs, censored comms, erased black box, like it was a dream. Juno didn't respond, just stared at the glass, at a world that kept spinning like it hadn't almost died. Lexi leaned on the edge of the frame. So, that's it? Juno's voice was quiet. That's the problem. Lexi tilted her head. What is? Juno finally turned to face her. That they think it's over. Elsewhere, in orbit above Kepler-6, a small medical research ship drifted silently past the rings. Inside its lower cargo bay, a sealed cryopod hummed. It wasn't registered to any manifest. No markings. No serial code. But inside, a child, eyes sewn shut, mouth open, locked in a silent, joyous scream. The sensors pulsed red. Subject 9A, replication seed active. Back on Earth, Talon Gray stood at the grave of someone he never met. It was unmarked, fresh, still too soft in the dirt. He wasn't sure if it was real. He wasn't sure if anything was anymore. A bottle dangled from one hand, his shotgun slung across his back like it belonged there. Even in peace. Behind him, a message played on loop from his wrist display. Your mission has been declassified. Your actions remain unrecognized. Thank you for your silence. He took a drink, spit it out, and crushed the device under his boot. In a medical facility buried beneath Luna's south pole, Kane Draven sat connected to a silent monitor, the neural jack still sparking faintly. Doctors moved around him. Quiet. Afraid. He hadn't spoken since the jump, but when the lights flickered, when the room went dark just long enough, he smiled and whispered, "It's still listening." Back in Appalachia, the team gathered one last time. They didn't wear uniforms. There were no medals, no ranks, just survivors. Broken, dangerous, buried. They sat in silence, gathered around a flickering hologram of Calvaros Station before it fell. Stitch entered last, pulling a small data chip from his sleeve. Council swept everything, he said, but they missed this. He inserted the chip into the HOLO-core dot. The image changed. Not fire, not screams, but the faces of the converted thousands, happy, at peace, each one bearing a faint resemblance to someone in the room. Lexi stood slowly. Is this a warning? Stitch shook his head. It's a blueprint. Juno stared at the projection. A slow, cold resolve hardened in her voice. Then we burn it before they build again. Echo 9 stepped forward, silent. He dropped a small case onto the table. Inside, 7 black discs, each marked only with a number .1. Through 7 Juno reached out and picked up hers. The black signal wasn't a command anymore. It was a vow. Somewhere, deep in space, a child sits in front of a shattered console. He hums, a 4-beat rhythm. Over and over behind him. On the wall, a crude drawing is etched in dried blood. 7 dark shapes, walking through flame. Underneath, in shaky lettering, the sea is. Monsters came, and we were saved.